What is going on, you guys? In this video, I'm going to cover a topic that I'm surprised I haven't touched yet and people have been asking about for some time. That's basically just incorporating stretching or various stretches you can do using a total gym or sliding bench trainer. I'm going to do my best to make this a brief video, not a crazy long video, because this is something that could go on like 2 hours and even different little segments and body parts and stuff like that. I will cover different body part areas. I'll put timestamps down below if you guys want to jump to a certain body part. I chose what I think are the easiest, some of the best in my opinion, less cumbersome stretches and most doable using this equipment. I don't really want to force a whole lot of stuff in here, especially you consider there's a lot of ways you can stretch a lot of different body parts. So I'll basically break it down by breaking down all these stretches into like your chest, your back, upper back, lower back, and really primarily your legs. I might even throw in some neck stretches because there are some good neck stretches you guys can do in here. I'll utilize a variety of different equipment that usually comes with some people's total gyms or sliding bench trainers. Definitely the Pilates bar, I would say, is gonna definitely kind of shine and come in handy. I'll even incorporate the middle pulley attachment a little bit. I don't really show this that much. I probably should do a whole nother video on this, but I'll incorporate this. Another extra device that I forgot I even had, I'll do that. So that's what I'll go over in this video. If you guys do like this content, consider liking and or subscribing. It's always helpful. And one thing I do want to get out of the way, I'm definitely not trying to say I'm anti-stretching by any stretch of the means, pun intended, is that I think you can get by with a lot of great flexibility and range of motion simply by just doing different various exercises that work you in a full range of motion. And that's where a total gym or sliding bench trainer honestly really shines. And I don't say that enough. A lot of you guys already know this. It is a selling point in a lot of these different machines and companies that you do gain a lot of flexibility and range of motion just by incorporating the use of this machine, which I think is definitely true. Even in the past, though, I found that I can get myself in different positions, like even my flexibility knees and hips, just from doing things like deep squats or I mean, even in the past, I might even show it in this video, but I haven't done like a back bend in forever. But there's some things that like once I learn it, like let's say like a back bend or something like that, or even like a deep squat or some other kind of unique exercise or movement pattern, you can almost stop doing it for a period of time and then come back to it later and your body kind of remembers it, almost like your body with flexibility and stretching and range of motion. It's kind of like a trainable motor pattern, but also something your body kind of gives you permission to kind of get into. So I'm not gonna rant too much about that. My point is that I think stretching is useful. I think certain people need it more than others. Incorporate some of this stuff if you guys want to, but I wouldn't say, you know, force it in. I always think if something kind of feels tight, feels like it needs to be stretched, and that's probably a good indication that maybe it should. I know runners have that feeling. Whenever I got into like running kicks, I might feel like certain parts of my body need a stretch. You know, go ahead and do that. But just want to get that out of the way before I get into this stuff. All right, first thing we'll get into is just some chest exercises, and this is a really basic, fundamental one. You can probably figure it out on your own if you guys weren't thinking about it, but this machine really shines in just doing a basic chest stretch with the middle pulley attached, because there'll be some exercises here, some stretches I won't have that middle pulley attached, and I think sometimes it's better having it unattached. But this is just one, again, you can take your body weight off, however you want to do it, but simply just guide yourself into a deep stretch and just hold it. You can get different positions. I'd probably like right here, even lower the tower height if you wanted to. But even the way you kind of point your hands will either stretch more or less your shoulders or your deltoids. Even my biceps get more of a stretch in this position versus if I supinate my hands like that. So point is, a very basic chest stretch. I'm not gonna stress it, but my point is I can take one hand away, slightly turn my body, all sorts of things you can do simply just using the handles. And then definitely, certainly take advantage of this tower. Something simple, just like putting your hand on it and giving yourself a nice little stretch here, because some of you guys don't have a lot of equipment laying around. And so my point is make use of this handle. I'll talk about this even later. All right, now I'm just gonna show you guys some back stretches in my back. Right now I'm gonna talk about more or less the lats, getting a stretch in your lats, even mid back a little bit here. You certainly stretch the lower back as well. A couple different ways you can do this. First thing is just having the pulley in and then just simply leaning in and stretching out this way. Again, variety of ways I could even do this here, but simply getting into a stretch and holding it. I personally don't like this as much with the pulley attached, so I'll show you guys some other things in a second. But what's popping in my head as well is definitely, again, utilize this tower. Simply by hanging on one side, I can hang on this side inside the rails here for my right side, and I can go on the opposite side, hang on the other rail to really stretch my left side. That might seem like a pretty simplistic thing to kind of even point out, but honestly, those two stretches right there feel really good for stretching out your lats. And I didn't say this, but ideally if you want to hold like a static stretch like this, meaning you're just holding a stretch and not moving, 30 seconds each side would generally suffice. But again, like I said in the beginning of the video, just kind of do what feels good for you. Now what I'm gonna do is detach the middle pulley. And I'm not gonna talk too much about the height, but definitely I'd say you got all these increments. That's the beauty if you have like a model like this, has all these different increments, but play around with the different increments. That's really up to you. I don't wanna spend too much time on that because again, we'll work different positions, but we'll be here all day if I start talking about different settings and heights like that. Now I just got this in the detached pulley method. I have these carabiner clips. There's a number of ways you can do this. In fact, I probably should have spent more time getting this even. You can get this even, but for right now, I'm just gonna go ahead. It's detached, and what I like about this, it allows you to kind of just basically have more raw weight hanging on your lats versus when it's attached, you're kind of swinging a little bit. I could do single arm in a variety of directions, putting my way up the machine, holding off to the side that way. And then if we still got this pulley attached, if you're someone who has a lot of tension in the upper back that you think would go away by actually stretching it out, because sometimes you think would make it feel better, might not. So again, I'm digressing. But what you can do is just simply grab one handle. You could even grab two handles. I'm gonna grab right in the center. And you can simply just kind of, either you could just hang out here, but I think it actually works better with my feet on the glide board. And then I kind of basically forward flex my spine. And I basically just dead hang here. And I could even give a little bit of counter pressure, pushing my feet into the glide board. And that also helps me feel it. But where I totally feel that is all right here, right in the middle, upper part of my back. I know for a lot of people, you might have some tension that you might think, stretching it out back there might help. Just putting it out there, but definitely a good upper body back stretch. Even something simple like this, you guys have probably done this, and actually this might be a good place to actually, if you had an extra pair of carabiner clips, I used to kind of leave my old models having attached up there. If you attached your handles up here to kind of hold on, that would be good. These little notches right here. Otherwise, just simply holding on to the top of the machine and just hanging at a dead hang. I definitely feel a lot of stress just kind of being taken off right here in my lower back. So this is a nice just lower back stretch you can do. And this even definitely still stretching out your lats and even a little bit of our biceps. I can feel that there. Not so much here, but definitely I kind of feel a stretch in my biceps and forearms and wrists as well. Now I even broke out my gravity boots. I haven't used these in a long time. These are kind of a poor man's inversion table. And then if you got a total gym, these actually work here as well. It is pretty easy to kind of get into. Relatively, okay, I'll just say that. But basically it's just like an inversion table. So I just thought about that as that last exercise we did. This would be like the opposite of that. I can simply just go back and go a dead hang here. Doesn't feel as good for sure as like an inversion table would be, but still feels good. If I just wanted to relax here, take some pressure off my lower back, I could hang out here for a while if I really wanted to. Now you could do it without these things, but I've tried it. It is uncomfortable to hold it for a given period of time. Shameless plug, if you guys are interested, I will link these down below if you guys do want to check out a pair. I wouldn't say they're really totally necessary, but they're cool. I mean, if you have something extra, if you do have these in the house, they work out pretty good. For sure, there's a lot more back stretches we could do. You notice I didn't do a whole lot of chest stretches, but I think those are really like some bread and butter stuff. There's so much variety of lat stretches that you can do just holding from those few different positions I was in, and then middle back. So now we did a little bit of lower back on that dead hang. I'll show you a couple other lower back stretches when we get down more to the leg portion I'll be going into right here. Now this Pilates bar really comes in handy. There's so much stuff you can do down here, but one simple one that you can do that's gonna be more your glutes, a little bit of your piriformis, I'd say a little bit too, and definitely your hamstrings, is just this putting your foot in like something like 90 degrees here, grabbing the outside of the Pilates bar and then just kind of pulling yourself in. You can basically feel it that way if you kind of pull in your lower back as well. Another thing I can do now is put my foot kind of somewhat flat here, put my hands underneath the Pilates bar and pull in this way. This is another kind of mid back to lower back stretch if you guys want to do it that way. Okay, now we're getting into hamstrings. I'm gonna put both my feet up here and then I'm just gonna hold on to this Pilates bar and then pull myself in. You should feel that right in the middle, kind of inside your, basically more your adductors, inside your thighs, feeling it in your glutes and also, like I said, your adductors primarily, but even your lower back. But if I pull here, definitely feel that there. You can do a variety of grips. You know, if I do it more this way, I get more of the upper back, I start feeling that stretch as well. I know I keep saying this, but you gotta be really careful because if you're someone who's older, sometimes a lot of this excessive forward flexing spine stretches can really exacerbate some problems. So I honestly don't even deal with this. I don't mess with this stuff too much, to be honest. It feels good, definitely my legs, but you gotta be careful how much you're really pulling out and stretching a forward flex back. Like things like herniated disc and things like that can become more susceptible, and you gotta be iffy with. You can also just use one leg, put one leg on the outside, put one leg off, kind of hanging off to the end there, and then pulling in this way. Again, that I feel like you isolate more the inside of the adductors and also your hamstrings, but take a little bit less of that pressure off the lower back. So if you don't want to do a lot of excessive flexion, you can do that and hold a nice stretch that way. And I kind of like to counteract that, if you're someone who, I'm not your therapist or your doctor here, but if you're someone who does have a herniated disc on the posterior side, doing some extension exercises would be great. There's a lot of things you can do here getting into spinal extension on the machine. Again, there's a variety of stuff we could do just doing that, but again, hopefully that gets some ideas flowing. I probably would have lowered that a little bit, but a number of ways you can kind of push yourself into extension using the glide board. Okay, at like a moderate tower height here, I can go ahead, put my foot on top of the Pilates bar, and then get right into a really good hip flexor stretch. I maybe should show you from this side. Okay, you might have to adjust the height on this. For some people, this might be too tall to actually work out, but really great deep hip flexor stretch, kind of depending on where you're at and where you're situated. Because now I took the little pressure, and that was more quadriceps than more I was kind of tucked back. But depending on where you're sitting and where you're gonna extend, like right now I feel a little more upwards here in the top of my thigh. That's definitely a good option you guys could do. To make this a little more dynamic, I can go on the inside of the machine, and actually I'm still at that moderate setting, and I can kind of glide myself up, getting into a stretch this way and kind of holding it from there. Doing that definitely is gonna kind of turn on more of the hip flexors, but a really nice dynamic stretch to kind of get low into a position. And then simply just using this Pilates bar as a great hamstring stretch. This thing is great by itself, just doing a static stretch this way. All right, certainly here, drawing the leg back, getting more of my knee on the glide board. I can draw back and again stretch, not just the hip flexor here, but really, again, those inside adductors, get a nice stretch. Again, I can make this a little more dynamic, kind of moving into it. But again, this is the great thing about just doing some of the exercise. If you're doing these exercises anyways, odds are you're still kind of be guiding and working through a functional range of motion. All right, you can certainly just stretch your calves and your soleus, your gastrocnemius and your soleus muscles here. You got a deep stretch right in here, just doing a calf stretch right in the center. Another great use of the tower too. I can put this up at various settings. Again, one of the selling points of one of these machines is that, again, you got these different increments. I can just simply do a nice hamstring stretch here. I would just use this side's got some stuff on it, so I would just use this one side, but adjust the side you want. And again, I can raise or lower that. In fact, I could do that same thing, find a setting that works for me, working, doing that kind of a hip flexor quadricep stretch. Same thing, so if the Pilates bar doesn't work out, you can find a setting on your total gym on this side of the machine and do a stretch that way. All right, now I'll show you kind of a couple little fancy things, but it's still pretty good in my opinion, utilizing the Pilates bar. Just gotta be very careful, because the first time I got this Pilates bar, I wiped out by just messing around with this too much and not realizing this thing can come up really easily on you. So making sure you're giving it nice counter pressure that way, and if you can, just being very mindful of not pushing up on the machine. So a couple things you can do. This is even like an exercise you could do, but I could simply just go back here, kind of put my toes here and just kind of hold this position. I'm feeling this right here through my hip flexors. And then what else you can do is once you're here and you're bent, I'm gonna pull myself in and kind of stretch out that way. I can spread my knees out, driving them into my armpits, and I'm pulling myself out here. Definitely feel that in the hamstrings, glutes, even lower back as well. All right, now I'm gonna do some stuff with the middle pulley. I don't show this thing enough love. I honestly don't mess around with it too much. I should do a whole nother video on this, which I probably will in the future. But you can do a variety of stretches here. So I'm actually using, I think this is the Great Flex attachment. Total Gym makes a good one too. And I'm just gonna attach this clip. It really depends. There's a number of different sites. Actually, the Total Gym one has a lot of great sites on it as well, but I'm just gonna attach it just right there. All right, now in this position here, I'm gonna sit more lower on the glide board. Got my back toe is kind of flexed on the ground, and I'm just gonna raise my hips up a little bit here and allow my dead weight, the band, to kind of pull me. If I wanted to, I could even give a little more counter pressure. I think this is a little overkill if you really wanted to, because there's some other great hip flexor stretches, but that's another hip flexor stretch you guys could do. Okay, another thing is just allowing this thing to kind of guide you into a hamstring stretch. Again, pretty simple, self-explanatory, but you can get a nice, great hamstring stretch here. If you wanted to make a little more of a dynamic stretch, you can incorporate some of that as well. Then certainly here, I mean, just getting in a position, stretching out your adductors also works really well here. I definitely feel this for sure. If I was big into my running days, it's getting colder out. If I, sometimes I would feel tension in here. If you do a lot of heavy squatting, especially for someone who still squats with barbells, definitely this is gonna help you feel pretty good because this area can get pretty sore if you do a lot of squatting. And then going back to back stretches, I mean, if you got this middle pulley, this is also a nice solid attachment for doing those lat stretches as well. So this is another great option. And I don't know if you guys know anything about neck stretches. I know a lot of people just sitting at the computer all day. I mean, they get sore necks and just even if they get like kind of pressure headaches, this can help alleviate some things. There's a zillion different types of neck stretches. Those of you guys that know this know what I'm talking about. Different ways to kind of tuck your head in. Even the ways you look with your eyes as you do the stretch can make a difference. But some really simple basic one you could do with a bench, like a regular flat bench. But if you don't have a regular flat bench and you want to use something like this, you can just take your hand, put it underneath the glide board rails, lean to one side, like right here, I'm already feeling it, and then take your other hand with some counter pressure and then gently kind of give some counter pressure the other direction this way. Deep stretch here. I'm feeling it all up in here, up in my skull basically. So I mean, I definitely feel that. You can mess with different angles. Like I said, you can even, the way you look makes a difference. So now it's definitely right up here by my ear. All sorts of great neck stretches. And there's actually a few more I could add into this. I just don't want this video to go too long. All right, that's all the stretches I'm gonna cover in this video. I could make a part 2, probably part 3, and upwards of part 10 of the number of stretches you could do. I really wanted to stick with some of the basic foundational stuff you can do that's really simple to do, but I think hits a lot of people's kind of nagging, kind of sore spots. So I think also just in general, like I said, kind of where this machine really shines in different body parts and stretches. If there's something I didn't cover, if there's something you think that is definitely foundational that I'm missing out on that feels really good, definitely comment down below, try and describe it best you can. I'll try and feature it in the next one, or at the very least people can kind of pick up on it in the comment section. As always, thanks for watching you guys, and I'll see you guys in the next video. Thanks.